Hi, today we begin our 3D project and the first model we will design is a pyramid. As you can see, the model is procedural, meaning it is built using programmed instructions that can be easily controlled by a side panel. This is a very important feature for our projects, since we want our models to be flexible, in order to accommodate for the changes that are certainly going to occur in the design process. This model is in fact meant to guide us in the building of a real diorama, and for that I will pay special attention to measurements and colors. For the very same reason, I won't go too much into the details of objects that I won't be able to reproduce in the final diorama. Finally, this model is part of a larger project that will include other models that I will design in future videos, so stay tuned. But now, enough talking and let's get started. The first thing we may want to do is to import a reference image. So let's go to File, Import, Images Planes, and just select the file. Let's scale it up. Okay, as you see, it's a pretty simple shape, basically just a bunch of steps. So let's hide the image, select the cube, and go to Geometry Nodes. Create a new geometry node, let's call it Pyramid. And first of all, we add a mesh line. Shift A, search mesh line, and a instance on points. So basically the mesh line is made up with 10 points, and for each point we're gonna instance a cube. So now we have a pile of 10 cubes. If we want to control the number, we just plug the count in the group input, and now we can decide how many cubes we want. So in order to scale them, we have to work on the scale here with an index. It doesn't look like a pyramid at all, but we have to separate the axis with a combine X, Y, Z. And now we're back to our original upside down, almost like a pyramid. But if we remove the Z and put it back at 1, here you are. However, here there are 5 instances, and here we have 6, because the index starts from 0, so we have to add 1. So let's bring in a math node and add 1. So now they are 6 again. We also want to control the size of our cube, so let's copy this combine XYZ, Shift D, plug here, and just drag X, Y, and Z. It disappeared because they are at 0. If we hit 1, here they are again. So basically the job is almost done. We just need to turn the pyramid upside down and change the offset. So we just have to throw in a bunch of math nodes. I will fast forward not to bore you to death. We'll catch up at the end. that's our pyramid. We can decide the number of steps, the base, and most important of all, the height. The height is particularly important since in our diorama we'll be covering the model with bricks, and bricks have a fixed height. So let's switch to orthographic view. If right now, let's assume that bricks are 1 unit high. If we want to cover the pyramid with bricks, we need one layer of bricks per step. However, if we scale the pyramid, now it's, let's say, 1.5. However, if we want to cover each step with 1.5 bricks, we have to chop them, and they're really brittle, and we create a mess, and that's not what we want. So the best way to control that is just to decide here how many bricks we want. If they are 1 unit and we want to use 2, we just type 2, and now we know that the pyramid represents a shape made of 2 bricks per layer. So that's it. To make the stairs, I will use a very simple trick. So let's zoom out, just select all the nodes, press Ctrl J, put them in a nice frame, and just Shift D, duplicate it. So let's change the color to avoid confusion. This second group of nodes is actually our stairs. I just need to multiply the number of steps, reduce the size of each cube, and just squeeze it. So basically it's 2 or 3 math nodes to carry out this operation, and then join them here with a join geometry. So Shift A, search join geometry. Okay, we're almost there. We just create another parameter here to control how many steps there will be for each of our layer. And let's say we want right now 4. If we just add a transform node, we can push the second pyramid out of the first, and here it is. So all we need to do now is to squeeze it. So we don't need the Y here. Let's say 3. And since it has the same angle of the pyramid, it doesn't pops out very well, so we can just work here on the offset. And here let's type okay. We're there almost. Now if we want to improve this design even further, actually we can very easily, because we have done most of the job. So we can just add a duplicate element node, and since the geometry doesn't change, we can just move the initial stairs slightly. So let's reduce the scale let's make it 0.2, and this one as well, 0.2, and 0.5, 0.3. It doesn't pops out because it's not connected. So here it is. We need to change from point to instance, and the same for this one, 0.5 minus 0.3, and join it, and we have this extra feature, which is really nice. So we need some more nodes to proceed. So realize instances first, then a subdivision surface. This is going to be important to display the displacement maps. So let's change to 5, and the crease, let's make it okay. And we also need to set a material. And finally, we have one last thing to take into account, which is the scale, because right now our pyramid is really, really big. So it's more than 6 meters, and if we want, let's say, 11 steps, it's going to be even more. So we need a final transform node to reduce significantly the scale. In order not to type here 0.0000 and something, we can use a math node, Shift A, search math, divide by 100, and plug in the scale. It's gonna disappear. Then we need a combine XYZ here. We plug it here. We drag it all the way on the left, and we create one more value for our group input, which is gonna take care of the scale. So our pyramid is still there, but it's really small right now. So let's change the names just for the sake of simplicity. This is going to be steps, and it's integer, and the last one is going to be scale. And let's make 4. So here it is. Now the pyramid is, let's check it out. It's 30 centimeters. It's much more reasonable. Oops, wrong key. That's good. I think we're pretty much done here. As you can see, it's procedural, it's fun, it's everything you ever wanted. And now we can move further with texturing. To bring in the texture, it's very easy. You can just Ctrl-Shift-T and select the textures that you like. I found these on Polyhaven, which is a great place for textures, and boom, here they are. They're already in the right place. I don't see the texture since I have to set in the geometry node. So let's choose material, which And let's bring it up. We can give it a proper name like bricks. It doesn't look exactly the way we want, but we have to change some parameters. So change from UV to object, and then here from flat to box. So it's gonna spread in a three-dimensional way, and we can change the blend mode to 0.5, and we repeat the operation for all the other maps. So here it is. The scale is probably gonna be changed. Let's make it, say, 3. Okay, much better. However, the displacement is way too high and it's not set in the material, so I have to go to setting and change from bump only to displacement and bump. So now it's gonna blow, boom, but we have to type something really small. This is much better, maybe even less, the bare minimum. Okay, that's fine. It looks nice, however, it's way too clean, it's way too red, and I don't like it. So in order to improve the color and make it more realistic, I have to bring in a second texture and mix with the first. So let's do it. I will use Shift A cube as a test object, which is really big. Let's make it 0.05. Actually, we can change the units because we're working in centimeters right now, so it's much simpler to type 5 centimeters than 0.05. So let's create a new texture. Let's call it moss, and just repeat the exact same operation that we did with the bricks. Control Shift T. So here it is. That's our moss. And in order to combine them, I will select these nodes, press Control G, and create a new node group. So if I now go back and change it to bricks, I would create a new texture. Let's call it bricks plus moss, and with Control Shift A group, I have a new node group, which is our moss. I can just use directly Shift A search. Let's bring in a new mapping because we want maybe the scale to be different from the scale of the bricks. Now we just need a mix shader. And here they are. So as I said, the scale of the moss is okay. This is way better. However, it's placed not where we want, so it grows everywhere, it grows wild. We want the moss basically in the cracks. So we will use the displacement map as factor. So let's plug it here. Okay, maybe I switch them. But actually it's because I have to push the colors together with a color ramp. Shift A, search color ramp here, because they're very far apart. So let's bring one here, the other here, and Okay. So let's use the node wrangler to check where is actually I got the wrong map. So here you are. Maybe this way is better. And okay, now I can see. Okay, like that. And now that's where it goes. There's one missing thing, which is the displacement, because right now we just have the bricks that pop out. We want also the moss to pop out. And here we have the plug. So we use a vector math. And we combine the two vectors using a maximum. So this way it goes high where the both moss or bricks are high. So now I can go back to our, okay, it's loading not really fast, but I can go back to our geometry node and select the same texture also for our pyramid. Boom, that's it. So here it is. One last tweak, let's change the color as well, shading. Okay, now I like it. It's much more realistic, I think. Okay, we can delete this cube and let's check with our initial image, which is immense. Actually, it's much flatter. So let's change it to 0.7. That's it. Okay, now we can add the final details, which are a pathway and some other objects. So let's add a pathway, plane, scale it down. We can apply the same texture. So Control A to apply the scale, and here it is. Actually, I need to increase the geometry, so let's go to edit mode and subdivide. Let's say, I don't know, 30 times. Let's make it 40. Okay, this way we can have more details. Now let's add some columns. So mesh, cube. Let's add some loop cuts. Go to edit mode, Control R. Okay, now select two top faces and just extrude them. So now Shift S, cursor to selected, back to object mode, set origin to 3D cursor. So now the base is here, and if I just rotate it on the Y by 180, it's in the proper position, and with N I can bring it on the ground and scale it without having it to float again. So let's place it here. And now I think I want more columns. One is not enough. So let's mirror it using the pathway as mirroring object. And let's create an array with a constant offset. Like that. Let's I moved the pathway, so let's bring it back on the center. So I can use the same texture for these columns as well. Bricks plus mouse. Control A to apply the scale. Oh, probably it's the array, so I have to bring it in the front again. And let's subdivide because they're way too squared. Subdivision surface, let's make it, yeah, it's enough. Go to edit mode, A to select all, and just increase the mean crease to have them not exactly squared, but let's say slightly rounded. Okay, like that. I like it. Finally, we just need a main gate. So let's duplicate, Shift D, remove array and mirror, rotate on the Z by 90, and place it in the front at 0, perfectly centered. Okay, that's it. We're basically done. And now it's time to bring in some objects and create a nice scene. Alright, I brought in some objects. So there are an idol, a gem, a brazier, some moss, and some angry pirates. Some are of my own design, and the others, I downloaded them from Sketchfab. Browsing can give you inspiration for your stories. So it's time for us to create ours. Let's have fun. But it's not over. A danger greater than greed awaits our pirate in the darkness of the cave. We'll find out in the next video.